More variety.
We ain't one at a time in here. We're mass communicating.
You're listening to Para X.
Stirring the Cauldron is sponsored by McGovern Tour Design, creative custom tours featuring you as the tour leader. McGovern Tour Design creates itineraries that focus on your special interest.
I'll light the fire. You place the flowers in the vase that you bought today. Staring at the fire for hours and hours while I listen to you play your love songs all night long. For me, only for me. Come to me now and rest your head for just 5 minutes. Everything is done. Such a cozy room. The windows are illuminated by the evening sunshine through them. Fiery gems for you. Only for you. Our house is a very, very, very fine house with 2 cats in the yard. Life used to be so hard. Now everything is easy 'cause of you. And now, la 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 Our house is a very, very, very fine house with 2 cats in the yard. Life used to be so hard. Now everything is easy 'cause of you. And now I'll light the fire while you place the flowers in the vase that you bought today.
Merry meet and merry part, bright the cheeks and warm the heart. For tread the circle thrice about, to keep unwelcome spirits out. Bide within the law you must, in perfect love and perfect trust. Mind the threefold laws you should, 3 times bad and 3 times good. These 8 words the read fulfill, and ye harm none, do what ye will.
Welcome to Stirring the Cauldron. Now, here's your host, Marla Brooks.
Merry meet everybody, and welcome to Stirring the Cauldron here on the Para X Radio Network. Tonight we're going to be talking to Lillee and John Allee. Now, Lillee is an author and psychic, and she had her beliefs of balancing the mundane and the magical put through the test, or the ringer, with John's cancer diagnosis in 2005. Then, as of September past, they've been working through a new diagnosis that John has, The cancer has now progressed to stage 4 colorectal cancer that has spread to the liver. Both Lillee and John have made John's condition and fight public to educate people about colon cancer and that it's the one cancer that is curable if caught in time. And they also decided to share how they're dealing with the devastating diagnosis and are able to balance such a challenge from both a mundane and magical perspective. This insight can not only help people who have health challenges, but also the more serious financial, personal, and professional challenges that many of us face today. Now, John will be joining us later on in the show, but in the meantime, hi, Lillee, and welcome.
Thank you for having me, Marla. It's great to be back. Hello, everyone. And yes, this is a topic that I hope people will keep a very positive and optimistic viewpoint throughout this. We're not here to talk about it in a negative or a depressing sort of way, but to discuss an issue that can be generalized, if you will, to a lot of people today. Unfortunately, the various statistics show us that 1 in 3 to 1 in 5 people today may end up with cancer. And those are the latest statistics, Marla. It's scary. 1 in 3 to 1 in 5. And I remember back when I was in college, there was a situation where they told us in the room, 1 out of 10 of us, I don't know if you went through this, in undergraduate school, you went to your first orientation, they said 1 out of 10 of you will not be graduating. And we all looked around to each other and said, oh my goodness, who could it be? And now we're talking about someone in your family for sure, someone in your neighborhood, someone possibly working with you. You're going to run into someone who's going to have cancer. And this is a fact, unfortunately, it's a reality. And we've come a long way from 40 years ago where cancer was the C word. We didn't use it. It was automatically a devastating diagnosis.
Mm-hmm. Well, I worked for a doctor for many years, and his take on cancer was that if you live long enough, everybody will get some form of cancer. And that's kind of overwhelming, too, to think about that, you know. I mean, it kind of makes you think, well, if you're lucky enough to die in an accident, you won't get cancer, you know. I mean, it's just one of those things.
And that's an excellent point that I'm going to bring about. One thing we're going to be talking about is that you see people today who are very scared of cancer. They don't know what to do about it. And they do wonder, you know, it'll be better if I die young. It'll be better if I die old. We do not have answers. And here comes the metaphysical part of this. We do not have answers for any of this. And the bottom line is, whatever we do, we have to accept it with grace, with dignity, and in a balanced form. Obviously, it's good news, I guess you might want to say, if someone was predestined, if you believe in predestiny, to end up with cancer, and yet they died at 72 of a heart attack. Great, right? But again, we have to look at things from a balanced perspective and say, what is really going on here? Now, one thing I want to mention, if I can, Marla, is that I look at life, and John and I look at health and everything in this balanced format, and we see everything as a continuum, whereas neither side is good or bad. Neither edge is healthy. I compare this a lot to the gun control situation today. Walking around saying nobody should have guns, even police shouldn't have guns, a little bit intense, okay? Mm-hmm. And then you have the side where everybody's saying everybody should have the guns, we should have the right to have as many guns as we want to, and walk around armed in the teeth. Again, a little bit intense. Mm-hmm. Because by focusing on any edge of a situation, instead of looking at the balance, you're going to find not only dis-ease, where we're all anxiety-filled, and when we have that anxiety, it will lead to eventually disease. Mm-hmm. And I want to again state regarding colorectal cancer is something that can affect anyone. It used to be just men, worry about the men. Now women are getting it as well. And we urge people to please check with their family, see if there was family history. And when you're at the proper age, and your doctor will tell you based on your history, the proper age to start having a colonoscopy. No, it's a great butt for jokes, no pun intended, but it's also the one way that you can be assured you are not going to end up in John's situation. John's family did not share information because in that era, cancer wasn't talked about in the family. It was the shh word, okay? And so when he went for his regular exam in his early 50s, which is when they say, those in low risk can start, he had found at that point that he had stage 3 colon cancer.
Wow.
This was in 2005. Last year we went, and he was told in January that he was totally clear. They couldn't imagine it would come back. It'd be very unlikely it would come back. And he had been 7 years clean. Mm-hmm. And then in March, because he simply had pulled a muscle, we got a full checkup, and by September we got the news that he was stage 4 and that it had metastasized to the liver. Mm-hmm. And that's usually a very horrible diagnosis. It's horrible only in that for many people that means you're talking about a timeline, and there aren't exactly great options. Even the options that medical people can offer you are only giving you a little more time. And so when you're looking at that, instead of worrying about the time, we need to worry about how we're living that time and what we're doing to, if possibly, extend that time in magical and mundane ways. Okay?
Right. Now,
so that's where we're at with that.
Okay. But here, you've been on my show before. You've been with Tim and I on shows talking about you coming from the right path, John coming from the left path. Where do you meet in the middle on something like this? And do you find it harder or easier to deal with the circumstances because of your alternative spiritualities than the common road?
That's a great question. And for me personally, I think it's easier this way because I have to be the caretaker. It is never easy to be a caretaker. And the second part of this is going to be that he is a very realistic individual. Coming from the left side of the path, he believes that he has control. And, he has always been very supportive with other people in his situation. And that's saying, I made it 7 years. Okay, they told me I'd make it 3 years. I made it 7, and I'm still clean. And so his very realistic approach has been very healthy for him. My very toward the right side, thinking of healing and thinking of the positives, has been very good for me. Honestly, most people who know us, who are very close to us, will tell you, I'm taking it worse than he is. And that's common, not always. Nothing's, there's no general situation we can apply each of us to.
Right.
But basically, it's a matter of he accepts his responsibility, and he accepts his responsibility now to choose to get well or not. And there's no guilt involved, and there's nothing like that. But certainly, it is a situation for both of us where we're meeting in the middle now and saying, okay, what are our options and what are we dealing with here? How can we both help each other to get through this and enjoy our lives? One thing I want to state, no matter what your situation is, and I know there's a lot of people hurting financially, psychologically out there too, we do not label our life as the cancer couple. We label our life as moving forward, enjoying, making the best of a situation, and having some fun. And that's the best advice I can give anyone, is do not label yourself as the problem, okay? John is not the cancer John. John's still John. John's just dealing with a challenge right now. Is one of those things.
Well, and my opinion about labels. I think everybody does, because somebody says labels and I jump up and down. I just don't believe in them. We're not a label. We are who we are. And labels, to me, most of the time are very detrimental. So.
And imagine if somebody's always saying cancer, cancer, cancer at you. It's a very crazy label to keep labeling yourself with. You're actually, if you don't mind me saying so, putting that label back on. You know what I mean? Oh, yeah, that's right. I've got cancer. I've got cancer. Try to plan something during the day that doesn't have the C word in it.
Exactly. And it's not that you're negating it, but you don't need to dwell every second of your life because, you know, I mean, anybody, people that have arthritis or people that have gout or people who have whatever, if you think about it all the time, it's going to bother you every minute of every day, which is only going to make it worse in the long run, both physically and emotionally. So,
well, you become the gout. You want to become the gout? I mean, when that's all you talk about with your friends, that, you know, when somebody mentions your name, they're going to go, oh, yeah, Judy, that's gout. No, you don't want that. And so John has been very clear with people that this is something going on, but it's, you know, you don't want to know about, you know, diabetic Donna or, you know, anxiety-ridden Annie. They're still people. And so that's a hard thing for the people around him to deal with, as well as for him to keep coming back. Because when you go to the doctors today, and many of us will talk about this, and you're labeled as the diagnosis. And they have a set schedule of what they can do based on that diagnosis. But in honesty, if you didn't know that diagnosis before you walked in, you'd still be living life. Yeah. And that's how you have to look at it.
Exactly. All right, so let's talk a little bit about why it's important to weigh both the mundane and the magical.
Well, one of the most concerning things that you're going to find with anybody in this situation is people are afraid, all right? And that's totally understandable. And a lot of people will say to me things like, and they're very well-meaning, and I appreciate it, believe me, I'm going to do a spell. I've got his, you know, picture up on the healing altar. I'm going to project positivity. That's wonderful, okay? But the other mundane issues are do we have the money to afford John's care? Is John getting the rest he needs? Do we have the money to make sure he's eating all the fruit that he needs? And all of those things. So you've got to balance the two. It's really good to pray, but it's also good to pray and do. And even the Christian belief is, remember, your life is going to be judged on acts, not on what you believe. Because we can believe something all the time, and that's not going to make it happen. We still have to put that intent in. And remember the foundation of the witch's pyramid. Okay? If you don't have the will, the thought is great, but it's never going to, without the will and desire, we're nowhere again. We're back to the thought.
Now you're talking about, you know, waving a wand and the magic part of it. I want to get to the spirituality in a minute, but something just popped into my head now, and I kind of already know the answer to the question that I'm going to ask you from my perspective, but I'm going to put it out there so you can explain it your way. How do you respond to people who are thinking, well, Lillee is a witch. Why can't she just cast a spell to make it all go away?
Very interesting. And you could say the same thing to Christians. You could say the same thing to anybody. And believe me, there would be nothing more wonderful for all of us, maybe, maybe not, to be able to throw the wand out there or do the circle and pray, let's see what's going on. But this is an excellent question because it begs the description of how magic works. First of all, the first thing is you go with the flow. So it's that recognizing that there is a problem and then working to mitigate it. Magic can mitigate. It's not going to, imagine, I do a lot of work, as many of you know, with LGBT. It would be very wonderful if I could wave a wand and make someone that wanted to be, a girl who is physically a male, if I could wave a wand and make him a girl. Unfortunately, we can't do that. So that's where the science comes in. But we can do magic to help them grow into that identity. Part of this is, remember too, as a witch, we're familiar with death. Okay? And we know it's not the end. And we also know that it's part of the cycle of life. just as the 2-year-old who you're ready to kill as they come crawling up your leg. Okay, it only lasts a certain amount of time, and then you're going to miss it. And we've sanitized death in our society a lot. And that may be good, that may be bad, but the bottom line is death is a part of life. It's the ending of our life. And when you get words like, John did get an expiration date, and when you hear things like that, it's frightening. But now I have something to work with my magic. I always tell people to read the Kabbalion and go over the Hermetic laws and use those laws, because those will help not only mentally but also physically. There's that question of will. Yes, we have free will, so nobody can be going around with, even if we had superpowers, I can't will you to do something, Marla, with a wand, because what about your free will? And so we have to look at the reactions to people and the fact that witches are humans, priests are humans. We can mitigate, we can heal, but we're not gods. And it's even dangerous to think that absolutely this spell is going to work. That's when you get into cultish behavior. And then you go over that dangerous edge. And that's the one thing we don't want. And the other thing is, and I know we talked about this, is, are people going to then think that witchcraft is not real? And there's some great books out there that address this. And it's for anyone of any religion. When Bad Things Happen to Good People is a great book. We look at the life lessons. What is going to change by this? If by John and I talking about this openly for the years that we have, if we saved 10 lives because people went and got a colonoscopy and got the little polyp popped, look at how that's changed lives. Okay? Yeah. But you got to find your own comfort zone. And that whole idea that you hear all the time of where was your God when this tragedy happened, he or she or it may have been there, and he or she may be there right now. But there's life lessons for you to deal with in the here and now. I hope that makes sense to you.
Absolutely. I'm a firm believer of things that happen are life lessons. Instead of saying, oh, why me? You're supposed to say, all right, what am I learning from this? And it can be bad. I mean, we all have horrible things happen. But instead of just looking at it as a negative, you have to turn it around and say, okay, there is a life lesson here. What do I need to learn? Some people will learn, some people won't, but that's the way it goes. Then they're just going to have more and more to face as they go along.
And that's what will happen with them. And what's funny is when people come to me for counseling and they say, why me? You know what my answer is, Marlon? It's a really snarky answer, but it shocks people into reality. Why not? Would you rather have it be your kid? Would you rather have it be your mother? The bottom line here is it's happened to you. Do not victimize yourself. Now this is your challenge. Okay? This is your challenge. It's not a why me, it's now called what can I do about it?
Yeah. You get in there and you're put to the test, and how you handle things, because all right, so you mentioned that John had an expiration date, right? Now, if he totally believes that, he's going to self-fulfill prophecy it into being,
Which is why I have said to doctors, Marla, you're going to laugh. This is why I've said to more than one professional who stepped back and just taken a gulp of air, because when they do that, I simply say, can you not do my job and I won't do your job? By giving an expiration date, you are becoming a psychic. Okay? Now, in New York State, you don't have to have a license to be a psychic, but say at Salem you do. And I've always chuckled to myself as to how many doctors who are making prognoses, when really those are based on statistics. And just as many, I have talked to many survivors, as you can imagine, in discussing this. And I've heard anger from people where they got an expiration date of 6 months and their mother died 6 weeks later. Okay? Those people, remember, that self-fulfilling prophecy, they didn't get everything done right away because they had 6 months. They didn't call the family together. We have 6 months, we'll have a party, we'll have this. Well, guess what? Our deities had a different idea on the matter. Okay? And so that didn't work out so well. And then when you give someone, and I talked to someone recently who had a liver cancer diagnosis, believe it or not, in 2005, he's still alive today. He did alternative means, and he's still kicking around. Now, imagine how that works, where people are now walking up to him and say, I heard you died. No, I'm still here as far as I know. And the other thing I want to share real briefly, I just want to backtrack for a minute, is John and I are both, the one path that we both agree on totally is co-creationism. And with co-creationism, you and I separately and sometimes together help work with deity to create the reality that we want. Obviously, we would be multimillionaires on a desert island if we could do it just ourselves, okay? But we get what we're given, and then we can work with deity and work with our will and work with our self-direction, if you will, and our guardian angel or even guardian demons, as some of them call them, whatever you want to say, and build what it is we need to build. And so John is co-creating his existence every day. And I am co-creating with him. And when you have that approach to religion, and that's not really, co-creationism is not a set religion. It's a spiritual belief that you can take no matter who you are. You can be an atheist and believe in co-creationism if you just co-create with the environment. That's really important because remember, there is still will involved. There is still hope and options. And those are the three things that we need to look at.
Exactly. And, one thing I've really been impressed by is I'm following John's posts on Facebook, and they certainly are far from the poor me variety, and here's the thing. We all see posts from healthy people who complain bitterly about minutia, things that really aren't important in the big scheme of things, like, I have to work on my day off, or oh my God, I burned supper, and these things like they're coming down on them like this is the worst possible thing that could happen and wasting all that energy. And to me, life is about priorities in order of importance. The main ones are tragedy, serious illness, and honestly, nothing else below that matters in the long run. So to see John, who could very well be out there, just wailing and angry and doing all this stuff, what I'm reading is fighter. John is not going to give up. I mean, he's not giving into this thinking, okay, this is what they said, this is what's going to happen, I'm going to sit here and play solitaire the rest of my life. It's not working that way. And this is what I've been really, really impressed by, because nobody can be, feeling what you guys are feeling or going through what you guys are going through. And as you said, it's a multi-thing. It's not just a diagnosis. It's not just care. There's financial stuff in there. There's 6 and 7 and 8 and 10 other things a day that you have to deal with along with this. But, you're not sitting there bitterly complaining about what you're doing. You're doing what you need to do, and you're getting it done. And you're living life. You're not celebrating anything else, and really really importantly, kudos to both of you on that.
Well, thank you. Suggestions when people say to me, how do we do it? I do use 2 acronyms, and I just like to share those quickly before we bring John on, which is SOS. When people have serious issues, joke with them and say SOS. And they're going to go, what do you mean? Yeah, I need help. You say, no, you need science, optimism, and support. Okay? Science is the logic. Let's look at the actual statistics. Let's look at the logical approaches to this. Optimism or options, what do we have to work with here? What can we do? What can't we do? What do we want to do? And finally, the biggest one, support. Do not, whether it's anxiety or whatever someone's going through, financial, you will find people out there who are supportive of you. If you're caught in a situation where you're around non-supportive people, find people who are supportive. Because support is the number one indicator of recovery in any kind of illness, including rehabilitation, physical, and from substance abuse. So don't be afraid to yell SOS, but do it looking for that science, optimism, and support. The other one is when people say, well, you're dealing so well with it, and I laugh at them, I say, well, not really, but my recipe is, do you see my halo? And they laugh, they go like angel halo. And I mean, I could discuss the whole aspect of the aura involved in this. And, that's maybe for another show, Marla, but in discussing the aura and how we keep our aura healthy. But the words for me stand for healing, authenticity, logic, and optimism. Again, healing, okay? You've got to heal any past hurts that you had with an individual who's ill, okay? And you've got to heal yourself. The caretaker cannot be falling over dead because they're so giving themselves, because when the inevitable occurs, whether it's tomorrow or 20 years from now, they're going to have nothing for themselves. They've taken on that label, if you will, a caretaker, and then they suffer immensely. Authenticity, being yourself. When I yelled at John the other day, he can tell you this, where he said to a doctor, I'm good. And of course the doctor just went, la, la, la. And I said, no. You're not good. These are the symptoms you've been having. You're doing as well as can be expected, even a little better, but you're not good. And he goes, but that's what we always say when someone says, how are you? And I said, yeah, but that's not the authenticity of life. Okay? If I'm walking down the street and you're going to work, I'm going to work, and I say, hey, Marla, how are you? Of course I expect to hear fine or good, or how are you? You don't, but, you don't expect them to sit there and go, wow, since you asked, and give you a 2-hour litany. But there's times that you do need to give that litany. And that's the communication with your loved ones, with your friends, with your support system, and really with your medical professionals, because otherwise they're not going to get it. If you tell them you're doing good, they see you as doing good. That's what you said. Does that make sense? So, yeah, think about that halo. And don't believe your own hype, but some days, literally, the only good thing that's happened is I've kept that halo on. Okay? And it sometimes gets a little dirty, and I have to take it off and wipe it around and, get it glowing again. But remember, people will help you if you're positive. Victim is not a word. Survivor is the word for people in bad situations. Health-wise, again, financial, whatever they're coming up against. Divorce can be as debilitating as cancer. And are you playing the victim role, or are you going to be the survivor and thriver?
Exactly. And I think so many people revert to victim because I suppose A, they want sympathy, B, they want attention. But when you play the victim, you get so pulled down. I mean, it's like standing in quicksand. The sorrier you feel for yourself, the deeper you get into it, and there's no way out. And, no kidding. It isn't easy to deal with issues, serious issues. It is not. But, and people will say, well, it sounds good for you to say, well, make the best of it. Well, but they're not just words. We can do it.
Exactly. And what is the best? We couldn't go away, obviously, where we wanted to go for New Year's. John will probably tell you this story too, but I wanted him to have a really spectacular New Year's. And so what we did, and everybody giggles about this, is fortunately, literally down the street, there's a wonderful place called the Craftsman Inn, and they have this traditional Christmas and New Year's buffet that, you just can't imagine. Bananas Foster, roast beef, every kind of fish. It's amazing, okay? And so we went and stayed in a jacuzzi room, and we had fun. We had fun. We didn't have to worry about driving. If he didn't feel well, he could go to the room, which was, a few steps away. And so you have to accommodate, but don't just cut things out of your life. So many times you probably heard, well, we won't invite Grandma because she can't do the stairs. Well, maybe you need to figure out a different place to do it so Grandma doesn't have stairs to worry about. And it's simple things like that so instead of sitting glumly in front of each other and the TV set on New Year's, we had a phenomenal New Year's. I still got to dress up and do the things I did. He took pictures of me all dressed up. I took a picture of him in his bubble bath, and we had fun, okay? There you go, fun. Is it a different kind of fun than maybe we would have had 5 years ago? Sure. But you know what? It's a different kind of fun than we would have had 30 years ago, and it's still fun. It's, that, you know, it's not kids.
Yeah. It's kind of, you know, so simple, but so many people don't see that, you know, that there is a way to take care of it very easily and live your life. And it may be an alternate way, you know, but it's still a way. It's because I saw the pictures, and both you and John were glowing. And that is probably what some people wouldn't expect, but you both were.
Well, we did that, and believe me, we didn't mean to do glowing. Those were taken off my iPhone. It wasn't like we touched them up. But yeah, it was a great, fun time, number one. And number two, it was because people keep on saying to me, and again, here we go, putting the power of words in witchcraft is very important. And yet I have other witches saying to me, you must be going through such a hard time. Oh, I don't envy you. Well, you know, you don't envy me, number one, please don't. And number two, don't think my life is hideous. He's not dead yet. Okay? And we're having fun. And, you know, whether it's going on trips, depending on how he feels, whether it's getting together with friends, we've opened up that a lot of the people who he's helped over the years with his work in the craft, you know, we do have regular visitors to the house who want to see him and talk to them. And he wants to see them and talk to them. And we are trying to make some connections privately, you know, with people who want to meet with him and all that. That's wonderful, okay? And that's important, but it's as important for them as it is for him. These are opportunities. You're also going to find people who have decided they don't want to be in our life during this time. Okay, well, that's fine for them, okay? But they're going to have to deal with the regret later because the other people are taking the advantage of enjoying this time with John. And if it turns out to be 2 years, 3 years, great. I will be thrilled to come on the show in 5 years and tell you, oh, I guess they were wrong, and we'll be laughing about it. But in the meantime, it's a matter of dealing with it. What people don't understand is when they get so upset about this terminal thing. And I was just looking at the Syracuse news, because that's where we're out of right now. And a kid died 19 years or 20 years old in a muscular car crash up on one of the interstates here. And I cried for that family. And I'll tell you why. They didn't get to say goodbye.
Right.
Okay? They didn't get to have those moments of saying, if I haven't told you before, it's been a wild ride. And that causes as much problems as with this long, drawn out, you know, when the next shoe going to drop thing. Because I don't think I'd want to be in any situation. You don't get it. Sure, those are not an option for you. They happen or they don't. Sandy Hook, do you really think I'd go up to those parents and say, please feel sorry for me? No. Okay? But they too are going to have to get that support in their lives and move forward. From, to me, the most horrible thing in the whole world that can ever happen is the death of a child. And, I mean, imagine that. When I look at that, I realize how blessed I am.
Yeah.
And so does John. We say, wow, you know, this isn't so bad. John's going to be 62 in March. Okay? So this is all positive. And that's really neat when you think about things in a positive aspect.
Absolutely. Now, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to bring John in, and then I have a $64,000 question for both of you that's going to make us all smile.
Oh, wow. I can't wait.
All right, Tim, take it away.
Another beautiful morning in a quiet town.
I think you might have found a new species here.
Ah! Mark, you need to tell me what in the hell's going on, please.
Thankless job.
is the alien bacteria from another world.
What do you want me to say? That the world's being invaded by aliens?
Ombus 2013. Visit DeftonePictureStudios.com for more information. This film is not yet rated.
When the sun goes down, do you start to crave something dark and decadent? Vampire wear has something for your immortal soul. Jewelry, accessories, and if you dare, vampire wear. Home of the Tribal Fang necklace, complete with certificate of authenticity, except no other. Get your vampire wear at vampirewear.com. We always get what we pray for.
Ghosts of Buffalo by Tim Shaw. Now available through Amazon and Barnes & Noble.
Hello, this is Mara Katria, director of Please Talk With Me, the true story of the C2D1 haunting. And you're listening to Tim Shaw, host of The Black Cat Lounge on the Para X Radio Network.
Ideal Event Management is your top-rated paranormal events organizer. They represent some of the biggest names in the paranormal community. Whether you need help putting together your event, looking for a celebrity, or just want to pump up the excitement, Ideal Event Management can help you. Contact Mark at 413-478-3642 or check out their website at idealeventmanagement.com. You'll be glad you did.
Janine Marks, a 12-year-old, was fairly normal. She spent a lot of time online. One day, she met a new friend. The new friend had the same problems at home. They liked the same bands. They worried about the same subjects in school. They promised to keep each other's secrets. They wished they went to the same junior high. The new friend had good news. He said he was going to be in Janine's area one Saturday. He thought it would be amazing if they could just hang out, go to the mall. Janine agreed. The new friend didn't want parents messing this up. Janine showed up alone. So did her new friend, who wasn't in junior high, wasn't nice, and wasn't a 14-year-old boy. Every day, children are sexually solicited online. Help delete online predators. Call 1-800-THE-LOST or visit cybertipline.com to learn how to protect your kids' online life. A message from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children and the Ad Council.
And we are back. We've been talking to Lillee Allee for the first few minutes, and John is with us now. And John, I want to say hi, how are you? And I know you're going to say good, and then Lily's going to beat the heck out of both of us. So welcome, John.
Hi.
I mean, I know better. I'm not a dumb witch. I'm not as dumb as I look, anyway. So how does it feel to have...
I'm feeling well, as well, to be considered, considered well in my state.
Okay, I think that's a safe answer. Good one. Good one.
I'm kind of fishing around for the right words.
I know. I'm kind of ducking from the wand that she might be pointing if we get a little strange here. So I'm really glad that you're in, because we've been sitting here talking behind your back in front of your face in the chat room. So I'm glad that you've joined us. And, we've been talking about coping and dealing and what to do and this and that. But my $64,000 question, and again, I think I'm psychic enough to already know the answer to this because I know you both. I know that you and Lillee are both animal lovers, and you know how curative animals are. So how have your fur kids been helping you throughout all this, both of you?
Oh, my goodness. Do you want to answer that first, Lillee?
Okay, I'll answer that question. They keep me sane in that they keep me on a schedule. So when I don't want to deal with anything and I'm tired and John's resting and I just like to rest, Samantha And she has to be walked, she has to be run. And every time she sees me, she's glad to see me. Every time I cry, she doesn't care. You know what I mean? I can sit there and cry to her while we're walking, and she doesn't care. She just sits there and brings me another stick to throw. And she keeps it real. The three little griffins, one of these big dogs, but he's a rescue, and we have the two Brussels Griffons. They're very attentive to John. John moves and you have to hear about it. More so than ever. Pumpkin is his Watson and henchman, and then Pugsley sits there and curls with him, and Poopy Boy, of course, Pazuzu, is always watching when John's eating, because, of course, that's his most interesting topic.
Yeah, in case John drops something, yeah.
Right. He wants to make sure John is kept clean. So, he has his job.
Uh-huh. Animals have a clever way of showing how much they care sometimes.
Well, it's funny because I don't worry. They keep him amused, and I don't worry about him with Poopy Boy because, remember, Poopy Boy is no alert dog, and he's been trained for me, but if John's resting, I know that the dog would let me know if John's not doing well. And so that's another thing that's really a beautiful thing with a service dog is they sense things, they know, and he gives me a little peace of mind. So I can't stress enough about the canines, but I would also say our friends that have been supportive and are there for us are also just wonderful. Absolutely wonderful.
Mm-hmm. And as you said earlier, go ahead, John.
I was going to say, you'd be surprised how we got to calm them down from this telephone interview. We have them all in my room, so if they see Mommy, they're going to scream for Mommy's attention, and bark for Mommy's attention, and that would go over the air. So our resolution was to have them all in the same room with me, and it's working.
It is, yeah. Because I know earlier one of them was barking a little bit, and now they're all quiet and comfy and happy with Daddy.
Yes, and they're all looking at me, too.
They're looking at you expectantly. They want you to eat something so you can drop it and give them a treat.
Exactly. But that phone might turn into a bone at any time.
Well, it could if you both raised wands. I mean, stranger things have happened, right?
Well, I've gone through 6 ear sets one year, and a funny thing happened with that. I always found them mangled with tooth marks, but nobody would attend to it. So I was sure it was John. It had to be. Because nobody else said it was them. So I'm sure that John went through this phase that he had to chew on headsets. And surprisingly, now that the headsets are above Griffin level, we haven't seen this. So I think that John obviously knows that he will be the only one blamed now, and that's why they haven't been eaten, don't you?
Yes, I was trying to put the headsets up. Everything up out of Griff's range. It's terrible. It's part of the lifestyle I regret living with these pups. Because they're uncontrollable. They don't they have a mind of their own, and they don't, they're not obedient, really.
They were given free will, too, just like the rest of us, so they're going to run with it.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So we were talking earlier about dealing and coping and spirituality and magic. And, spirituality is an interesting term that I think people kind of have some idea what it is. But do you guys have a definition of spirituality or how you feel it is?
John, you want to take that one? Do you want me to start?
Yeah, I see. For me, spirituality is tied in with everything. My spirituality is tied in with what people call materialism and all that. But I believe that when there's a blend, when there's a blend of higher functioning to the brain and lower functioning to the brain, that there's there isn't that conflict that people experience. It's when people try to divide the two that I think they run into problems.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, spirituality is like the life force itself. And
what you're saying, John, too, is that the mundane and the magical are one when you really think about it. And
yes,
it's when you separate those, and, we have and I'm not picking on Catholics, but, we have our Sunday Catholics who do very good on Sunday, but then Tuesday, they may not be so good. And, money's the root of all evil, but what is everybody doing? Driving into the church with the best car that they can possibly afford. You have to have that balance. Again, I can't say enough to have the balance. And what I do is anytime anyone gives me something, and someone said to me it's my Catholic guilt, but it's really not. It's my Catholic upbringing that's good. Okay? When someone gives us something for John, I always take a bag to the Salvation Army, because that's the only way I can give back. Do you see what I mean? There's clothes that I don't need anymore. There's other things that we don't use. And if someone can use those, great. And it's paying it forward and paying it back. And you constantly have to be. When we label a religion, that's really a relinking with a deity. That's what religion, the word comes from, is really to relink. And unfortunately today we've separated our religion, our religious life from our everyday life, because of course, you don't want to wear a 5-pound Baphomet or a cross into the workplace. But the bottom line is, do you bring those ethics and morals with you wherever you go? And do you believe in what you say you believe in? Okay? That should be a celebration of a life. It shouldn't be a moaning and groaning thing, except for the people who realize that what you're really doing is realizing that you've suffered the loss. Do you see what I mean? You're losing that person. That person now is without the pain or with whatever. They are in a better place. And in the meantime, you're dealing with, again, the mundane. And it's your magical aspects, your spiritual aspects that will get you through those mundane things of the funeral and those days after that are the hardest days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
And in general, the choices you make shouldn't be choices that you regret. You should always be following your highest excitement, following your bliss. I really believe that. I'll always believe that.
Oh, John, I want you to talk about that for a minute, because I'll tell you, Marla, the hardest thing that we've gone through is his choices of treatment. And you would be amazed at people who have told me to force them to get this treatment or that treatment. And I say, absolutely not. This is John's life. It's going to be John's death, and it's John's decision. Just because someone's sick, you don't lose your free will. Now, obviously, if he was unable to make those decisions, as power of attorney, I have to make those decisions for him. But I have spent hours with John, so I can speak not only for John, but as John, and as Lily grieving, throwing a fit inside over what is a crisis situation. And that takes a lot of practice and communication, and that's why I stress the last thing Americans especially want to talk about with their families and their friends is death. But it really should be the first thing, because I'd like to know what you want to do. If I got a call that something had happened to a friend of mine, I want to know in advance if she wanted to have flowers or not, if she wanted to have a donation to the dog rescue center, or she wanted it to the cancer treatment center. We need to talk about this more, and not in this doom and gloom situation. It's a reality. It's no different than buying a house. You're sort of buying the farm. Yes, it's a joke. Never mind.
It's really funny. They think that just because Lily's the female counterpart in our relationship, that she says has some undue influence over my mind, and how dare you not get him into chemotherapy? What are you doing? The way you're influencing John. The thing is that she's not influencing me, just like as I'm not influencing her in the decisions she makes day to day.
Mm-hmm. I know, and knowing you, John, I don't think anybody can influence you. You have a good mindset, and you know what you want and what you need, and it's kind of like that is that. You'll listen to suggestions, but I don't think anybody could kind of put the strings on you and turn you into Pinocchio, right?
Right, ultimately, that's the truth. I mean, there's a lot of times when I've yielded to Lily's will. she has an extremely strong mind and an extremely strong will. But,
well, yeah. I mean, you have to meet in the middle sometimes.
Yes. I always try to get her to meet in the middle. Even though I feel she'd be happier if it was mostly, her, I'm saying when we come to loggerheads, when we come to, it usually has to be her way. And I don't know why. Sometimes I just let go. I let go, but not because I'm weak, but because, this is important to her. And I'll say to myself, this is so damn important to her that, if she insists on doing things this way, then we'll do things her way. I won't argue with it, but it's not really me conceding to anything at all.
Right. But that's also a good husband. I mean, how many times do you hear where people argue about everything to argue? John and I don't argue about everything to argue. Okay, and when we argue, we debate. It's hysterical if you're ever around us. We actually make it into a debate, which is sort of funnier than an argument. And there's sometimes, I know I'm right.
Want to leave the room.
What, honey?
They either find it amusing or they want to leave the room.
Right, they do, because they don't expect that. They almost want
overwhelmed.
Right.
I think I would find it amusing. I would pay the 50 cents for the show. I would, honestly. We've got like 2 minutes left, and I just want you guys to quickly tell us what advice can you give others in a similar situation?
I would say go with my SOS, okay? Science, optimism, and support. Reach out to people. John and I are on Facebook. You can always reach us. And don't be afraid to search for supportive friends. If friends are toxic for you at this point in your life, deal with that later. Prioritize and set up positive boundaries. You will be better in the end. A lot of my friends wonder why I'm not doing this or that. My priority right now is John. Okay? I can do whatever I want to do once we get over this little hurdle. The bottom line is right now, that's my priority. End of story. Mm-hmm. And I think you have to be open enough to say that. And a lot of people don't want to hear that. They want to hear, well, I'll take you out for a drink, you'll get off, you'll get it off of your mind. No, I won't. I'd be much happier with John. I'm going to be going out there the whole time thinking of John. Mm-hmm. So be realistic, be honest, and have that open communication with the other person so that you are able to talk about your hopes and your fears. It's okay. It's all okay. Never once has John told me I was stupid when I cried to him, and never once when he's talked to me have I told him he was stupid or said that his feelings don't matter. Feelings right now would matter the most.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Usually, I diffuse the argument by saying to these people, I agree with you. I think Lily should find another husband and stop. I actually agree with them. I'll go along with them. They're going to be so mercenary and materialistic and say, she should be looking out for her own happiness. And if this is a horrible strain on her, I agree. I think if they want to take love out of the equation, I'm all for it. Whatever floats their boat. This is the way people are nowadays.
And as always, I want to thank everybody for listening in. And until next time, everybody, blessed be and merry meet again. Good night.
This has been another edition of Stirring the Cauldron with Marla Brooks. Be sure to tune in next week at the same time for another great guest and more fun. Any rebroadcast or other use of this program without permission is strictly prohibited. Copyright 2009.